By now, you've probably seen in the news and in social media these sort of rumors of looming food shortages. I can't really tell you whether or not that's true or not, but I can tell you that from talking to, people in the agriculture industry and from watching videos by farmers and ranchers who are on YouTube, they all say pretty much the same thing, that a month, 6 weeks from now, 2 months from now, somewhere in that ballpark, you're going to see things that will be different in the grocery store. And it's going to be reminiscent of sort of the toilet paper problems in 2020, except for food. There's a lot of reasons for this, and we won't go into all of those, but they assure us that even meat will be affected by this. So, and I'll try to remember to put in the pinned comment a few of these videos that I'm talking about where farmers and ranchers are talking about this. What I want to talk to you about right now is preparing for that. Because, if you're watching this, you're probably on the carnivore diet, or you're probably keto and looking to go carnivore, and you don't want to give up that way of eating, that lifestyle, because it has done amazing things for you, and you don't want to have to give that up. You want to weather this coming storm. So I'm going to give you some very simple advice on how to do this. And the first one the first few all fall under the sort of the category of knowing your community, knowing your neighbors. And I'm saying that because, in my area, there are a few almost like indoor farmers markets. They're not really farmers markets, they're more like country stores, right? So you need to know where the country stores are. And they often sell local beef. In fact, it's grass-fed, grain-finished local beef. And I know where two of the outlets are. And they sell locally produced produce, local chicken, and local beef. And I've never seen the place busy. When the place is busy, it would be a grocery store would be a ghost town if a equivalent proportion of people were in that grocery store as are in those country stores during their peak hours. So you need to know where those are. Most cities and most areas have something like that. When I lived in Portland, Oregon, I knew where one of those was. In addition to the sort of boutique farmers markets, in Portland, Oregon, people tout the farmers markets. They're not that great, to be honest with you. They're pretty overpriced, but it's good to know even where those are if you're in a city, because you're going to need to get you may need to get creative to meet your meat needs in the coming months, if this stuff is what we're being told is even remotely true, which I tend to think it actually is. So first, know where your country stores are. The second is, again, under your community, you've got to know where your local beef producers are. And I mean, practically every state except maybe Hawaii has local beef producers. Cattle grazing is everywhere, and it could be in colder climates. We're talking about lamb instead of beef. But you got to know where those folks are, because a lot of them will sell beef directly. I buy most of my beef from a local rancher, but there are at least two other options that I know of for where to buy beef directly in my town. And if it's not just my town, once you start going out, there's even more and more options. So you should know where they are, because a lot of times they won't just want to sell half or full cow. Maybe they'll sell you, a bundle pack of steaks or roasts, or, 100 pounds of ground beef or something. So you need to know where those are. Again, you have to know your community. This is an old-fashioned idea, somewhere along the line, people in the United States and most of the West really took on this, I don't need to know my neighbors thing. Well, times are changing. It looks like you're going to need to know your neighbors. So get to know them. Know where to get the beef from. And some of these places will be number three. It'll be weird places you can buy beef. I'm going to give you an example of this because I can't think of, other examples really. But in my community, there's a Benedictine monastery. These are Catholic monks who used to run a university nearby, but the university had to close for a variety of reasons. And they are required by, the laws of the church to produce their own meat, or not produce their own meat, but to do work to make their living without necessarily going out and getting jobs. So they had all this land and they needed to figure out what to do with it. They got into raising grass-fed, grain-finished beef with the help of a local agricultural leader who helped them get started. And so you can go to their little monastery store and buy tomahawk steaks, ground beef, liver, what have you. And I actually saw on their Facebook page that they were taking orders for half and full cows earlier this year. You need to know where groups like that are. The weird things, places that don't necessarily come to mind all the time for this stuff. So that's number 3. Number 4, there are websites where you can look to start ordering meat from. I mean, we have all, if you're carnivore, you've heard of Billy Doe Meats, or Butcher Box. Most of the, bigger name influencers have featured their products there. I've bought from Billy Doe Meats. It's good stuff. Wild Fork Foods, I'm not saying they're not going to be affected by this. I think everybody's going to be. But you need to start knowing where some of the alternative sources for meat are, assuming you trust the mail system. And again, I'm not predicting, total societal collapse kind of thing where people do long-term prepping for it. Though I'm thinking about doing a video on what you need for that, because when you're doing long-term prepping, there's a lot of other things, considerations you need to get into. I'm going to suggest number 4 here would be, yeah, you might be carnivore yourself, but this might be the time to get some raised planters, some, raised planting soil, and grow some fall and cold weather crops. Partially because if it gets bad enough, you'll eat it yourself, but you probably know people who or you can easily find people who you'd be willing to barter the product of your labor for some ground beef or whatnot, so you can stay on this way of eating, or more likely eggs, right? Some of your neighbors might be producing eggs. Maybe they need potatoes. You can make a switch. You can make a trade. This brings up chickens, of course. Know the laws in your community. Are you able to have chickens in your backyard? If you can, are you the kind of person who can then raise those chickens yourself and have eggs and, if need be, meat? Get to know the sort of the complicating factors. Like, I live in coyote country. That's a complicating factor. Find out from people, if you're going to go to that length to make sure you have eggs and chicken, find out what they do to protect their chickens from coyotes. A simple backyard fence isn't going to do the job. Just trust me on that one. There are a lot of other considerations here for this. So the other one is, I'm going to tell you, is just in the immediate. There are going to be, right now, you're probably watching this approaching the 4th of July. There are right now a lot of meat sales going on for the 4th of July. The best times of year to buy meat are Thanksgiving, Christmas, and summer, right? At the very least, hit those sales. I'll have a video for you in a couple days that's pretty light. There was a deal at a local grocery store that often has good meat deals for whole ribeye roast of USDA select quality. So these weren't the mystery standard commodity grade. This was actually decent quality. Select isn't the best quality, but it's decent. And these were whole ribeye roasts and whole beef tenderloin. So I picked up 1 tenderloin and 2 beef ribeye roasts, and I'll have a video cutting them up for you to see them. They were the ribeye roasts were $5.99 a pound. I picked up 25 pounds worth. It's a lot, not cheap either, but I now have enough ribeyes in the steak to last me the rest of the summer at the rate that I eat it. This would be a good time to stock up. Or, go to the stores early if you can in the morning when they first open, or right after they first open, to get those markdowns. Repackage them, put them in your freezer. These are basic things. We really need to start thinking outside the box if everything we're being told about food shortages is true. And even if it's not, it's pretty undeniable that the economy is getting kind of rough. So these tips are also equally as worthwhile for that, because some ranchers are going to be raising their beef prices. Some will not. My source for beef is not worried in the slightest about the coming, grain shortages or whatever, because of the way he raises his beef and where he sources the grains he finishes his cattle with. I haven't checked in with him on that recently, so maybe since today, that day I'm recording this, is the day that I can go see him, simply because he's in my community selling his beef. I should ask him. Maybe I'll just go up there, ask him, and buy a steak or something. But let me know in the comments if you have other tips for preparing for these things, and what you think the veracity is. How likely do you think this stuff is going to be where we're going to see these kind of shortages? So let me know in the comments. Please like and subscribe if you haven't. It does help these newer channels grow. Share this on social media if you think the message was valuable. And as always, go out and optimize your day today.